we're not going into we're not going to go into coding as so much because I know some of you guys are coders and some of them are not. So I try to stay away from as much as possible on Visual Studio stuff so we don't go into it. But so let's just talk about in general also. When somebody say caching, what do you think caching means? So caching means that cache is memory. I just go over these slides that we already seen before. So what is caching? It's a common technique to improve performance. So what it comes down to is everything is performance. And back in the old days, when when we try to log into an application, taking a few minutes, that's not a problem. But these days now, more and more people don't have that because we have better technology, we have better equipment, hardware-wise, hardware, software-wise. So we are, performance and time is money, right? So we want our app to run the most efficient. So this is similar to what we were talking also. Similar, different ways that you can improve performance. Yesterday we talked about CDN, Content Delivery Network. Content Delivery Network is another thing to improve the performance, right? Because anytime you put something in memory instead of the data in memory, instead of you have to read the data from disk, there's a big difference always. So if you can read the data from the memory and not from the disk, so it normally says about 40 to 60% improvement performance-wise, and 40 for 60 is a big range because it depends on what type of data you're retrieving. If you're retrieving just text and you put it in memory, you will see about 60% improvement from having CDN, having the Content Delivery Network CDN, and not without having it. So that's a big improvement. But if you have a lot of graphics and graphic stuff, a lot of computing stuff, a lot of numbers and stuff, then it can be more more toward 40% improvement going from a regular connection to your app than using CDN. So even to improve it further than that, not just CDN, now we also have caching. So caching is there's a lot of third-party tools out there. One of the things that we integrated here is called Redis Cache. That's what we'll talk about. So it's a newer functionality that we add to Azure as well. So it's a pretty new technology out there. It's most,
are you sharing the screen?
Oh, didn't I share my screen? Of course not. See, I didn't say I was awake. I just make sure you guys are awake. Thanks for reminding me. Thank you. Everybody, but did you had a chance, that's a good point, telling me. Did you had a chance to download the session 7? You guys, everybody have that PowerPoint file? I shared it in the Skype. Everybody got it? Pradeep, were you able to download it?
Yeah, I do have it.
Okay, you have it? And is that somewhere on your guys' network site or whatever, the share folder that everybody can get it? Because I don't not everybody have access to Skype. Can you make sure it's there? Okay. So make sure you can follow along with me, and especially when we go into the lab, we'll make sure that you have the step will be important. This is a big lab. So hopefully we can do it without any problem. So back to the cache is memory, right? So memory is more like for a cache in computer is like your brain cells, right? So if you're doing it from memory, it's always going to be faster than something that you have to go read. So the same thing applies here. So but you want to put things in cache. You want to put your content, which means data, in cache only if that data is going to be static. Mostly, if you see a big impact on static data. And we talked about the same thing with like CDN, right? If you have like videos, how to do things, let's say you sell equipment and how to use your equipment, that type of how to do this, how to do that for your product or product description, all that type of stuff, we call that's static. So normally you're not going to change how to use your product, and that's not going to happen. You might update it once a month or every 3 months or so, but you're not updating daily or you're not updating hourly. So that type of data is good to put in the cache. And it's subject to high level of contention. So if you have a lot of transactions going to come in and pull the same data, the same thing again and again, that's when caching is beneficial. Because if you don't pull the same data, if you're pulling different data, the same thing with the CDN, it's going to take the most relative data only, right? So you wanted to make sure that people's only going to look at that data maybe once a week or once a day or so. That's not worth it to put in the caching. You want to, if there's only one user doing that, you don't want to put in caching either. You want to put in caching that is going to be a lot of people are going to use. So example, in your organization, example, you have an application called ABC, and entire company use that application every day. That type, so, and that data is static, then that is a good one to put in caching. Okay. Caching is additional service. It's not come with Azure right off the box. So because of this, it's additional service. There is cost associated with that as well. So keep that in mind. So there's why would we use caching and what is caching? That's why we would use caching if we want to. Now, caching in distributed application to improve performance and scalability of a system always. Temporarily copies frequently accessed data to fast storage that's located close to the application. And if your application is pulling in data from SQL database, example, and let's say your SQL database is in West Coast and your application is in East Coast data center, that type of thing, you wanted to make sure that you're using caching because it's a lot easier to do it if it's closer. You're pulling the data closer and your application doesn't have to go far to go get the data. So there's a lot of things that you wanted to include, but you also have to keep in mind that when caching is additional service, so there's a cost for it. So you have to do, cost analysis and cost versus performance, return on investment. Our return on investment is whether or not depends on because we have to pay additional costs. So that's one thing that you wanted to figure it out, make sure is this effective for my organization or particular project you're doing? Should I put caching in distributed applications or not? And private caching, so there is a couple of private caching, and we have public caching as well. So most basic type of caches in a memory store, it's easy to quickly access all of that. You can also have data in a particular process, and you say, well, this process is private caching, means that you're not sharing with other applications. Most of the time, it's at the application level. It's not at the user level. So we say, well, this particular application, let's say, have sensitive data type thing. So you can have a private caching and only allow certain application to access to it. And within the application, also, not every user is going to have access to that private caching. And sometimes we do private caching if we're moving data or if I'm doing some type of testing. I want to make sure that nobody can access that because I'm running a test. I want to make sure it stays we don't have any other impact, especially if you're doing statistics or data and stuff. You're trying to find analyzing data, analysis data. You want to make sure that not including other connections coming in. So you wanted to put it in private caching. So these are other reasons that you would use private caching. So here we're talking about, so we have SQL database, and we have applications as, sorry. I wanted to see if up there. So it caches a snapshot of the data at that time. So this application say, okay, if you set up caching, we're going to say, okay, this from the SQL, it's going to do a snapshot and put it in the caching for this application. If you want to put it for application A and B, retrieve data at time Y and caches in the memory. So so that's why we want to do it in static data. As you know, it's dynamic data, then every time changes happen, it's going to impact your cache. You don't want to do that. That's going to cost you a lot by keep updating the cache. So we wanted to make sure you put static data. So sometimes we're like, okay, we only need to look at the data once a day. So today morning, when 9 o'clock, all the new data comes in from yesterday, that will put it in the snapshot. So we have a copy of that, and the applications are using from that. And so it's not a current data, it's a day-old data, but it's going to be faster because it's in caching. So we'll see also there's different type of caching rules that you can set up. You can set up how long the caching should live, time to live, as well as what application should have access and how long you want the application to have access. How often do you want to reset the snapshot? So pretty much snapshot is copying the data to a particular location. So in this case, we're copying this data in SQL database into a memory. So that's what we're doing, and we call that caching. And we can also create a shared caching that was a private caching for that particular application only. If you share caching, means that you can have 5 applications accessing to the data from SQL database. Let's say you have 5 front-end web servers, web pages, that websites that collecting data and putting it into one SQL database. So in that type of thing, you can create a sharing caching. So once the data is pulled from one app, all the other apps should have access to that cache. So they don't have to you don't have to you don't have to create a snapshot for every single app. You can create it in one app and it can share among all the apps. Locate the cache in a separate location, typically hosted as a part of a separate service. Caching is a service, as a separate service, like I said earlier. Also, it is a cost associated with that. So you have to also remember the data in cache might be different than the data that you have in the database, because it's based on the caching rule that you set up. The data is going to be, if you say, well, every 9 o'clock you want to have a snapshot of the data, so that the data in the caching in the memory be the data that you have at 9 a.m. Anything after 9 a.m. changes is not going to have impact to your cache. So cache, you got to keep in mind, cache is not real-time data. Cache is a data at a point in time that you store it in the memory. So, okay, I want to create a snapshot at 9 in the morning or 7 in the morning, wherever your workday starts. So that's what caching is. A caching is a point in time snapshot that you have. That is a snapshot of a database, is what you store in the memory. So ensure that different application instances see the same view of the cache data. So easier to scale than private caching. Shared caching a little easier. Cache are implemented by using cluster of servers and utilize software that distribute the data across the cluster in a transparent manner. So caching is a part of a cluster. So a lot of times, what is a cluster? Cluster is a group of, so if we create a cluster, we can create a cluster is a group of servers that either they're sharing a software or they're sharing a network or they're sharing their resources. They can also share in a cluster. We can also share a physical. So example, we can create a RAID array. RAID array is, if you create a RAID server, RAID array is, let's say we have like 10 disks in RAID array. So we can create a cluster for that particular server. And of course, a cluster is a whole another technology, and hopefully some of you guys know what cluster is. But I just want to say cluster has, pretty much it's like you have a bunch of hard drives. And you have the servers are sharing those. You can share memory, CPU, hard drive, all of that. You can even, in a cluster of servers, you can also share operating system and stuff like that. So on top of that, one of the additional features we can add to the cluster is caching. You can also share. So pretty much we create a cluster that if we have something that we want to share among the servers, that's when we create a cluster. We also, back in old days, and we still do that too, we can also create a cluster for a failover servers. So if one server goes down, we have another server comes in. If we have a cluster, we have 5 servers, we can set it up that way. We have one primary and 4 failover. And if you want to do on top of that, if we wanted to say, okay, we also want to set availability set. I know some of you guys were in this session where we did the availability. Some of them you may not. But so in availability, availability, load balancing, failover, cluster caching, those are all pretty much all of the things that are, they go hand to hand with it, and you need to consider the entire thing and not, okay, I'm just going to use availability group, I'm going to use this only. You have to look at the whole picture, because combination of those functionalities, what's going to make the best out of it. So let's say in availability. So availability means that we wanted to make sure that your data is going to be up 100%. In order for us to be able to do that, we create availability set. So in availability set, let's say in Microsoft Azure, we have 1 primary, and you can have up to 8 secondary. An availability set, and you can have, that's one set, you can have as many availability set you want, as much as your VM is approved, because this is availability set you put on a virtual machine, you put on a VM. So availability set 1 primary and 8 secondary means that if one server goes down, you have 8 secondary. So hopefully not in the same day, all 9 machines going to go down. If that happened, we're in trouble, right? So that's not going to happen, but at least 1 or 2 can go down. So we have to make sure that we have failovers, right? If one failed, it will go to the second or third automatically. So if we are creating a load balancing top of load balancing, we're creating a availability set. So within the load balancer, we can have 5 machines, the 5 servers in the load balancer. And we can also make that load balancing group also it's a cluster. We can make it a cluster. So if we make a load balancing and there's 5 machines in there, each machine, it can be a part of the availability set. So we can have 5 availability set within the load balancer, and each machine is a part of availability set. So if we set up to each availability set to 9 machines, we have 45 machines in that cluster. And we can also set a caching for that all, but of course, not all 45 is running simultaneously. Only 5 servers running simultaneously, because each availability set does not run until the primary goes down. So, but in that group, we have 45 machines, and that is cluster. And you can create a caching for that whole 45 machine. Does that make sense? But that's what, in a nutshell, that's what cluster is, load balancing is, and what availability is, and why on top of it, we're using caching, because caching is memory. Memory is always faster. So if we, of course, especially if you have a primary database, we have the main database that everybody access to. We have 10 or 15 applications. Most organizations will have, at least 4 or 5 application is connecting to that database, pulling data from that database. In that type of scenario, it is very best to make sure that you create a shared cache service. You will see a big benefit for that, because you only have to pull data once, and it's sitting in the memory for all these applications to access. And like I was saying earlier, you can see an improvement anything from 40 to 60%. Depends on the type of data is stored, that you're trying to retrieve. If you're retrieving just text only, you'll see upper 50s, I've seen 56 up to like 58%. If you're doing more graphic-y stuff, pie charts and all that, if you're doing more of that type of stuff, then you're more toward about 40-45%. You'll improve performance-wise from pulling from a disk-based data. When we pull data from SQL database, we call that disk-based, because the data is stored on our hard drive, so we call it disk-based data. The data that we stored in a memory, that's what we call cache. And caching considerations, we also have to know that when cache is good, because of cache is good, then why don't we all use cache all the time? Because there's a couple other reasons. First of all, cache has issues because cache is cost, because you're using memory. Especially most effective when you have a large amount of data, and also you also have to make sure that if you're doing caching, that the data, you don't want to cache 2 or 3 different types of data into databases into a cache. You can't really do that. Cache is not, it works the best if you're storing the same type of data. So if you have all relational database data, and you can share the cache also, you can have 3 or 4 different database data pull into a cache. However, you need to make sure that they are they are same type of databases, because if not, it will cause some issues. We have congestion issues, limited number of concurrent connections that can cause allocated computer memory, allocated storage. So there are other things that you need to consider when you're caching data. But how to cache data effectively? Most appropriate data to cache most access data that infrequently changes. So that's the best explanation there. Most access data, people access it all the time, and that most access data that infrequently changes. It doesn't change very often. If you cache constantly, if you have a data is changing and you cache that constantly, that is going to impact the database. So you don't want to do that, and you have to remember, cache is not your database. Cache is just cache. You have a database. That's why we have a database separate, right? So you need to make sure that you're running cache effectively. determine the appropriate time to cache, like I was saying earlier. If your workday starts, if your organization workday starts at 10 or 9:30, you might want to cache at 9. So you have to be careful that when you want to cache the data also. And also you can set up in the rules, the caching rules, that if there's no data changes, do not refresh the cache. You don't have to do that if there's no changes. Only if there's changes, then you're going to create another snapshot. Because every time you create a snapshot, which is snapshot means a copy of your data at that moment, the minute that we create it, the minute that we create this snapshot. So we need to make sure that every snapshot is a load. It is impacting your server load. So you don't want to cache it. You don't want to refresh the cache. You don't have to create a snapshot again and again. You don't want to do that so often. So the most required, what we recommend from Microsoft, saying once a day. You want to cache once a day, and you want to find which database, like earlier I say, most access data in your organization that has the least changes. That's the one you're going to put it in cache to see that improvement. And we wanted to preload the cache with a data as part of the application startup. So we have a cache sitting in a cache server, but also your application, you have to point your application to make sure it's going to read from the cache. Okay, so that's what they meant by preload cache with data as a part of application startup. So when application startup, applications will point to the cache database, the cache, instead of pointing to your actual database. So that's where you need to make sure appropriate time to cache, and make sure that the cache is going to start up when your application starts. So caching is very important, but it's also very expensive. It is, it's a cost associated with it. It's a lot more deeper information that you need to know before you would do cache. I would highly recommend to look at, Azure Insight. Make sure that you had done all kinds of analysis to make sure which database is the best. You should put in caching, and also have some matrix analysis to make sure that when you move it into cache, what performance are we getting? How much is improving? Your return on investment has to be worth it in order for you to use cache. And that's why it's also very important that the data you put into cache does not change very often, because you don't want that data to become stale. If that data becomes stale, if you have to keep changing, keep updating your cache, or keep refreshing it, keep uploading the cache, keep recreating the snapshot, that is costly for you. So you want to make sure that time costly, as well as, cache-wise, it costs more every time you do that, but it's also take a lot of resources to create a snapshot and put it into the caching. All right, so you have to think about all of that, and data expiration in the cache. So if you're going to create a snapshot once a day, then you wanted to make sure that the cache expire before you load the new cache. These are all kinds of parameters. We'll look at it when we do the lab as well. You're going to see all of those. But it's very interesting. Don't want to scare you guys away from using cache, but I wanted to make sure that cache is not something you want to turn it on. It's going to work on its own. You really have to put a lot of thoughts in. For an architect, that you really need to design cache as a part of creating your clusters, creating what type of cluster you have, what type of other services are you going to use. Are you using CDN? So you need to make sure that you have all those. And normally you want to use one or the other. If you're having, most organizations, if they use CDN, they're not going to use CDN and cache. So either you use CDN or cache, and I have seen some organizations use both. So you have to think about, the big picture and what return on investment as well, and also to make sure how cache is going to play in to your overall cluster. If you're going to create cluster, also how you're going to maintain it on the VM, as well as how you're going to do your backup and stuff. So for the load on the server, how you're going to maintain that. So that's, so think of any time you add additional functionality, that functionality is going to help you a lot, but that functionality also comes with price, right? You have to have some type of maintenance plan. We have some type of policy associated with it, and in the big picture of deployment of cache, you have to decide that where am I going to plug in the cache, and that particular technology, as well as how is that sometime a lot of organizations, when we audit the organizations, what happens is that they are overusing the cache, which means that their overuse of cache means that they have other, they have CDN, they have other services. If you have other services, and on top of it, if you have cache, and like I was saying earlier, if you have the data changing frequently, and you have to keep creating snapshots, that you're overusing cache. It's not worth it to create a cache. So you need to decide when cache is going to expire, which means that when it expires, that snapshot is going to get removed from the cache. So the application must retrieve the data from the original data store, wherever the data is coming from. And then we have to reload the newly fetched information back into the cache. So cache has a lot of good things, and depends on, are you taking a hit on performance? Do we need to improve performance? And Redis is one type of cache. This is what Microsoft uses Redis, right? There are a lot of third-party organizations also. The other vendors also have a type of cache. So pretty much, Redis, we purchased Redis. Microsoft purchased it and integrated into Azure for us. It is an open source NoSQL storage mechanism that is implemented in a key value pair pattern, common among other NoSQL store, most commonly used as a cache. So what they mean by open source means that when we use open source, any type of open source, if even your application, right, like Linux and stuff is open source. When we use any type of open source code, this is open source storage. What that means is that you can put anything in there. There is no rules, right? No structure. Because there's no structure, you have to be even careful, because pretty much you can do anything you want in there. Microsoft's not going to set the application. We're just not going to stop and you say, hey, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. If even something that you're not supposed to do, it will allow you to do it because it's open source. Open source is good and bad. So I want to say open source is good, and you can customize it easily because it's open source. However, it's also, you have to be knowledgeable to make sure that you know how to use open source, because open source does not have restrictions. So it doesn't restrict users to do things. So if you want to delete a whole database, you can delete it because open source will allow you to do. Open source does not stop you from doing something that you're not supposed to do, or accidentally doing something. So most likely in open source that you can make a mistake compared to a structured application or structured database, okay? So because it's open source, and which means NoSQL. SQL is a relational database. We talked about that. Next week we're talking more about SQL also. But SQL is a relational database. Relational database is a structured database. So in structured database we use relationship. We have one-to-one relationship, one-to-many relationship, many-to-many relationship. You may not be a database person, but at least you heard of that. Okay, there is a primary key, there is foreign key. We have all that type of stuff in a relational database. And so the relational database definition from Microsoft saying that every table in a relational database must be related to one or more to itself. We say it have to relate to one or more table or to itself. So everything in relational database or itself means that if there's only one table in that entire database, that table is going to loop back and it's going to connect to itself. It has to have that relationship. Relational database, there's not a table out there with no relation. That table cannot stand by itself. It has to relate to one or more table or to itself. That's its relational database. Now, when we're doing these open source NoSQL storage, it's the opposite. Say nothing inside the application and nothing inside the database is connected. They are not related. Everything in open source, which has come from object-oriented methodology, is what we are empowering here in the open source. So when you're doing object-oriented methodology is saying that, hey, nothing is related. We don't have one-to-many, many-to-many relationship. We don't have primary key, foreign key. What we have is inheritance. Everything comes down from inheritance. So that's a big difference from going from a relational to object database, because objects say that nothing is related. Objects that in relational, everything is related. So what that makes is, it makes a big difference when we're talking about data in open source, because it pretty much going to opposite of relational database, which we've been familiar with because we've been doing relational database for 30-some years, right? So object's been out for a while, but object methodology applications and object methodology, integrated databases wasn't very popular till the last 4 or 5 years maybe. So it's a very different type of it. So all I want you to know is that when you're doing it open source, you need to be more careful because you don't have a lot of restrictions. So you're more independent, but because you're more independent, you got to be careful that you know what you need to make sure you know what you're doing. It's very easy to delete things that you're not supposed to or things like that. And open source, you have to, if you're an architect or a database person, or even if a developer, you have to think very differently because in object methodology is very different. Everything is come from inheritance and not from relation. So that's a whole big thing because we are using key value pair pattern. So if you look at the Redis, we will go into Redis cache, but when you see Redis, you'll know what I'm talking, why I'm making a big deal about it, because transferring from, your thoughts and thinking of, a process of coming from relational to object, you have to change the way you think or you're never going to be, the best doing things in Azure. In Azure also, Azure itself is, the whole Azure was built based on object methodology. Every object in Azure is standalone. That's why we can just create a VM. We can just create an app. We have each and one of them has their own object. So once you can see that as an object, an object relationship, you have inheritance, you have hierarchy. And if you can see that clearly, then you'll become, you'll be efficient with Azure. That's the hardest thing for architects or developers that coming from, from a relational to going into object. And so I hope that's, hope that you guys going to master. So you really need to master the object methodology if you want to be, if you really want to know Azure inside out. But that's what, where a lot of people coming from relational struggle, from understanding the way Azure works, because Azure is their own object. And Azure said not only that Azure application, Azure's application itself is an object. Everything in Azure is an object as well. All right? So it's a kind of tricky thing, and hopefully I do highly recommend you guys to also, even if you, just graduated from a computer science degree years ago. I graduated in 1985, so it's been a long time. But there's a lot of community courses that you can take just on object methodology, just one. And you don't even take the whole thing. You just take 2 or 3 topics to brush up on it, to get back into understanding OSI model, all that. Even if you're not a computer, you didn't even graduate computer science, that's all, whatever you graduated with doesn't matter. Or even you can look at YouTube. There's a bunch of YouTube videos out there really good about object. But if you guys are going to work and, work in Azure, I highly recommend that. And even though, I know, a lot of people tell me, I know object. I said, well, you may know object. You think you may know object, but you may not know the object the way Microsoft wants you to know. And it's very important for us that you need to interpret it Azure the way Microsoft wants us to interpret it, because that's the only way you're going to be proficient with Azure. You're going to take the most benefit from using Azure tool if you understand the reason why they built it that way. So that's what, I really want you guys to get to that level. So there's a lot of community courses. You can even take free college community courses online. Just go brush up on it, 1 or 2 sessions to brush up on object methodology. That's what I highly recommend that. All right, moving on. So Azure Redis Cache, so it is a managed service based on Redis that provides secure node as a service. So we also have managed service and unmanaged service in Azure. Managed service means that Microsoft say we're handling it. Well, if there's updates and anything comes with Redis, we will update it for you. You don't have to do anything. That's what managed service is, but also managed service is expensive. compared to unmanaged service, okay? And we have two service tiers, basic, a single node, and standard. So standard means that we have two nodes in primary and replica configuration. And replication support service level agreement is included. In single node, basic, we do not have SLA. So service level agreement by default in standard is 99.95%, 95% if I recall. Don't quote me on that, but I think that means 99.95 is in the entire year. Microsoft said, the most your database will down or your application will be down is 3 days. That's for 99.95. Now from 95, you can go up to 99.9999, which is 6 nines. If you do all 6 nines, of course, the higher percentage your SLA, the more you're going to be paying. But if you do 99.9999, 6 nines, Microsoft, they guarantee that your database is not going to be down no more than 3 minutes in the entire year. It depends on what you're willing to pay. It depends on what you can afford your data to be down. That's when you need to make the decision. Can you guys still hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because it's saying that the connection goes down. I don't know which connection went out. Is that your side or my side? So high degree compatibility with existing tools and an application that already integrated with Redis. Redis has their own website and all that. If you're not familiar with Redis and if you're planning to implement cached in your organization, I highly recommend to make sure you understand Redis inside out. Redis had two versions now. The latest version, I think 1.26. So make sure that also you cannot just put Redis on any VM. You have to make sure that there are prerequisites that needs to be met. A certain of CPU, a certain of memory has to be in order to put in order to use Redis, which means in order to use cache. So, and do any of you guys know that? Are you guys planning to implement Redis cache at all? Pradeep, do you know? Lucas, do you know?
I don't think we will be using the cache. We already have a cache inbuilt in the application.
Oh, okay. What are you using? Is that your in-house or your?
That's open source again.
Oh,
not
okay.
in the cloud. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, but you guys have it on in my list, so that's why I'm talking about it. So hopefully, either use it. One thing that, again, we were talking. This is the first day I was saying that I do highly recommend you guys, and you guys have look like a good group of smart people. You guys should go for Microsoft certification as well at some point. And like I said, right, if you're using it, might as well get the certification, right? So what there is also when we're in cache, this one of the functionality is called cache aside. So cache aside means that it's going to look at the data and say, does data exist in cache? If it's yes, it's going to retrieve. This is when a request coming from the client. So cache aside functionality, you turn that on. When a client requests a particular, let's say, customer table, it's going to go look at the customer table in cache and say, does customer table exist in cache? If it exists in cache, it's going to pull it from the cache and, of course, retrieve it to the back to the client, retrieve it to the request, whoever you request come from, to the request client. But if the data doesn't exist, that customer table is not in the cache, it will go pull it from the database or storage or wherever the data is, and it's going to put it into the cache as well as present it back to the client, to whoever requested. So every time somebody requested, but this is only if you turn on cache aside functionality. So you say, well, we don't want the users pulling data into cache aside, only we're going to have a snapshot, and if they go look at the snapshot, if the data is not in the snapshot in cache that they want, they're going to go pull it from, of course, from the actual wherever the data is, but that data is not going to go put in cache. It's just going to get retrieved back to the client. If you do that, you're not using cache aside functionality. So cache aside functionality is not only retrieving back to the client the request, but whatever the user request is, it is pulling that into the cache. So you have to decide that, do you want that or not? That's up to your organization and up to your organization what you are trying to do. Okay, so again, Redis cache is no storage, NoSQL storage. It is implemented in key value pair pattern, common among other NoSQL stores. Uniquely allow complex data structure for keys and values. We're going to look at those key pairs things. Commonly used as a cache mechanism is referred to as Redis cache. So Azure Redis cache, which I don't know, I must have a duplicate slide, or am I going down the wrong way? So here we have also in Azure Redis cache, we have storage, we have data, we put the SQL data into the cache, as well as you can put in the data. So we can also have the application writing straight to the cache instead of putting it into the SQL data. If you want to do that, you can do that as well. So from the application, these are key data types. Value welcome new users. So like any other language, right? Any other tool set you learn always going to have their own key. They have the value. Nil is for test value. A school or setting up. So this is just trying to show you the different data types. You are comparing a key with a value. A binary JSON file, binary JPEG. So there's so many different data types, but just in general you're looking. So if you're looking at this, colons to design their schema. So application : last update string. The value is January 1st, 2016. Grade levels, 3 average test scores. Grade levels 3, its average test score is 365. Grade level 2, average test score is 415. So this is just trying to get you familiar with the syntax, that's how they're using. So in many Redis applications, you can see a cache server storing hundreds of thousands of key value. It might be difficult to come up with a unique key name for each piece of data you want to store. So Redis team recommends you use a schema to break up your keys into logical grouping. In most cases, Redis will use colons to design their schema. So I say, so application, that is a schema. Within that schema, last update string, that is a column. So think of it that way. So these are, column names or field names. And then there is a value. So if you have last update string, and you can have, as long as the particular name of that last update string, you can use it many times in different schema. Within the same schema, of course, you can only have one, but it has to be unique. That's what they mean by you need to be unique. Redis operations, like any similar to when we do HTTP stuff, is get set exists. I'm going to change a little. So you can say get school metadata name. It retrieves the value associated with the key. Not exist will return null. So if it's, well, it will say Contoso Elementary. And this is, we're setting the school because we find out there's no there. So we say, okay, set school metadata name, Contoso Elementary. Now the name of the school has a value of Contoso Elementary. Changes the value associated with a specific key. We can also say get school metadata name Contoso Proprietary Academy. Change the value associated with that key. Return the previously associated value as well. You can also do exist. Takes one or more key as parameters and returned an integer indicating the quantity of keys that have associated with that particular value. All right, that brings us to do the lab. Let's go get the lab file. That's the one, right? Yeah, 16 pages. All right, let's get that. Make sure that you have that document You have that document downloaded. It'd be hard for you to follow without that. And let's try to log into our portal. So before we go in and do that, let's make sure we look through it so we know what we're doing. Make sure we have the document open. So in the document, everybody have the document, right? We are going into create a resource. In the Azure Marketplace, we are going to select databases in the Azure Marketplace column, and in the feature column, we are going to select Redis Cache. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. It's the Redis Cache form. I'm going to show you the form is here, and we'll walk through the form first. I want to make sure we look at it together, then we'll go in and do it. That we're not going to get lost. So the DNS name, I want you guys to name, like yesterday we did, we go to append your initial to the DNS name. We are going to create a new resource group. Make sure you append your your initial to it. Location, you can use any location close to you. Obviously West US. The only location I want you guys to stay away from is East US. East US has a lot of traffic right now, so I know there's a big training session that they're running and using East US. So stay away from East US. You can use any other one, okay? And pricing tier, when you scroll down, you will see different pricing tier. And this is where you're going to choose basic CO. But make sure you look at the pricing tier. It depends on how much cache you want. That's what you're paying for. You want 250 megabyte cache, or you want 1 gigabyte cache, or how many cache you want. So that we are going to use the basic one. If you use, also do we want to have availability zone, which means that if we have availability set, we don't have that, so we're going to say we're not going to select anything there. But if you want to, if you want this cache to be a part of your availability set, like we were talking earlier about the load balancing and all that, if you want to be part of it, you need to make sure you create availability zone first before you come in here, and then we come in and create. Then also we have a Redis cluster. So if this is going to be a part of the cluster, again, we're going to create the cluster first in another form, and then make sure that Redis cluster exists when you come into this form. And then we have data persistence. Are you going to make sure the data persistence or not? We are different tiers. Standard tiers is the default tier, but if you want premium tier, this is when you need to go and turn it on. Virtual network. If you just want to use the default network, you have a specific specification that you must use, then you need to set the virtual network. But in order to use Redis cluster, data persistence, virtual network, those are all premium. And yet pricing tier has to be premium. If you don't use premium or you're using basic only, these you cannot configure these parameters. So once we get all the parameter, we select, then we're going to select create. This is what the steps are talking. Like I was saying earlier, the DNS name, make sure you have the name, all the NNN is replaced with your initial. And you don't have to have 3 initial, you can have just 2, and select the subscription. We're not going to select this subscription. You are going to select what is assigned to you in subscription. Resource group, we're going to create a new one. Again, we are going to append your initial. Location, like I said, stay away from East US and East US 2. You can choose anything you want other than that, location-wise. Pricing tier, we are going to choose basic, and we're going to click create. Okay, so that's the first thing. We are creating a Redis cache. That's a form that we talked about, and it will go in, and we need to verify the data. We need to make sure we have created. So we are going into Redis cached console, and we're going to verify your data. So we go into the console, and we'll tell you how to go into the console. So we can go in from the console for when we create it. Notice, remember, it shows up in the notification, and we can pick it from there. Or we can go into all resources and look for a Regis cache instance, and you can open it from there as well. In the status field, we need to make sure it is saved running before we can go into the console. These dash consoles right there, when we are in the Regis cache instance, notice that that's just like a command line, similar to command line thing, right? We have that underscore, a greater sign, underscore, a console. We're going to click on that console. That is our Regis cache console. All right, these are different commands that we can test it to make sure once we are in the console. Okay, I'm surprised I didn't have the console window. All right, then we go back to the portal, back into that Regis instance under in the middle section, you know where the configuration is. You're going into settings and select access key. We need to get a primary connection string. Because Regis cache is a separate object, we need to make sure we connect to that. So when we open under the settings, access keys, that's going to show your primary connection string. We're only going to use a primary. We don't normally use secondary unless you have a lot of connection, but always the default is primary. So we're going to copy that using that copy command, copy icon there, document icon there, copy that primary connection string to a notepad or something to save it. Then we are also going to go look for host name. Host name, again, we are in the Regis cache instance. Under the settings, we are going to go see property. The property is going to tell us what the host name is. Okay, and the same thing, we're going to use the document icon to copy the host name. So let's make sure we're familiar what we're going to do. So now we go back into Cloud Shell and make sure we're in Cloud Shell, and we are going to, I'm sorry, I had a PowerShell here. This is incorrect image. So make sure we are in the Bash shell, in the cloud, in the Azure portal. We click that cloud button up there. We make sure that we are in the Bash. We're going to run this command. This is going to bring in all the .NET Core console application. New console name, and we're going to create Sports Stars Tracker. This is just a name. If you don't want to use that name, if you change something else, just remember what your name is. Again, don't forget that even though the image is saying PowerShell is incorrect, we should run this in the Bash shell. Now, once we're in the Bash shell and we had run that command, then we are going to create we're going to create a folder for the project and go into, by doing CD Sports Star Tracker. Anytime you see Bash, that's what we're doing. We're creating a Bash shell. Now we are going to create an fsettings.json file. So in order to create a new file in Bash shell, which the command is touch space, whatever the file name. So your touch space appending fsettings.json. So once we have that, we are in the file. So that's where we're going to create that file called fsettings.json, which is a blank file, nothing in there. We are going to go put this long line in there. But notice that where it said value goes here, that is the connection string that we just copied earlier, the primary connection string. I said we're going to put in Notepad. That's where you're going to come and put it. That's where you're going to replace it with the Notepad in there. And that's where your connection string going in. So this is how it's going to look like. Okay, so once we're in there, replace that value goes here with your connection string. And this is, I'm just showing you the sample connection string. All right. Then we are going to save the changes. Remember, this is a code command. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that you click that ... on the side and save the file. One thing here I'm missing. Well, okay, so we open the fsetting.json file, and this is that one line we're putting it in, which is that this is the line cache connection with your connect string. That's what we're going to put in the fsetting.json file and save the file. Okay, once save the changes, Then we go back in, we're still in the editor, remember the other day? And if you're new, you have to do quote space period to see this editor to show up. This is the Azure Cloud Shell editor, similar to like if you're a Linux person, it's similar to VI editor. Then we go into that sports tracker. Under there we have that CS proj file. We open that file and we go to add an item group. Okay, so we add an item group. Okay, why? I don't see the item group. Okay, we're going to add an item group. I got to find the code for that one here. But we add the item group here, and we're going to save the file. We're adding this one little group here. I just wanted to see if I put it somewhere. Okay, well, I got to find that. Now we're going to add and support to read a JSON configuration file. So that's what we want to do. We are going to we're going to install this Microsoft extension configuration.json nugget package. So this is going to bring all the libraries, the configuration file to it. So this is what we're going to run. After we run that now, we're going to add a code to read the configuration file. So we're going to open that program.cs in the editor, and we're adding this 2 lines here. App settings. There's 2 app settings line, 2 using, so this is, we're adding 2 library. We just installed Microsoft extension configuration, so we're going to add that, and we're going to add system.io. Now we're going to replace the main method with the following code. We have an app settings.json file, the program.cs. This is if you're doing, so we're going to go through these and do these together anyway, so no worry. But that's what we're going to do. Then we're going to get the connection string from the configuration, and we're going to retrieve the value connection and put it in a string connection string. But I see we're doing a lot of stuff here. There is support for the readiscache.net client. We are going to install another Nugget package, which is stackexchange.redis. Then we go and add that to the program.cs file. Then we are going to connect to the cache. So code to connect to the cache. For CS in the editor, we're going to add this using context multiplier connect. And this is where we have the connect string we're going to add. Then we are going to add a value to the cache. So we have a cache, but that has no value. So we're going to go get the database and put it into my cache. That's what we're doing, cache.getDatabase. And then we are going to set a couple of value in there to create a test key. So we have to be very careful we don't miss a step here. And we're going to get a value from the cache. So we put a value in the cache, and if you can get a value from the cache, then you are golden. The code should look like this, and when we do not run, it will tell us what's in our cache. So that's a long process, but that's what we're going to do. It shouldn't be that long because a lot of things are cut and paste anyway, even though you see a lot of documents. All right. I do need to take a quick break. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll do another 10 minutes later. Let's just say 7:40, so let's meet back at 7:45. So everybody good? We are meeting back at 7:45 Eastern Standard Time, okay? And I apologize, but I need to go do something real quick. So.
Good.
All right, I'll be right back. how we feel. All right. By now you know I'm crazy, so. All right, everybody's back. So let's go into the portal and make sure you have the document. Can somebody confirm you can hear me? I'm always nervous that you guys can hear me? Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. They're not hearing me? That's what I was worried. Yep. Okay, hold on a second. It's not going up. I don't know why it's not working. Can anybody confirm you can hear me? Uh-uh.
I can hear you.
Is it too loud? For some reason, I cannot adjust my microphone. Hold on a second. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, so, okay, everybody's back, and you guys all feel like you're on top of the world? Ready to take on the world? Something like that? By now, you guys know I'm crazy, so hopefully good crazy, right? So, all right, so let's get into the Azure portal and make sure you have the document, and we are going to go through the document. So I wanted to make sure we go through this slow, because we cannot afford to have any problem. So we are going to select Create a Resource button, which is Create a Resource button under the Microsoft Azure, the main menu. And we are under the Azure Marketplace. We are going to select Databases.
We are unable to see your screen.
Are you telling me that you're not telepathic here? I know, I keep forgetting. I get excited to start the class without keep forgetting to do that. Okay. All right, so when you select, we're back into the Azure portal. In the Azure portal, we're going to select Create a Resource. When we select a Create a Resource under the Azure Marketplace, we want to click a Create a Resource. We are in a new blade. So everything in Azure, when something pops up or something comes up to the side, or we call that blade, a B-L-A-D, blade. So we don't call those windows, just so you know Azure terminology. And under the Azure Marketplace column, you go to select Databases, and on the featured, which is on the right side, you want to scroll down all the way. Azure Cache for Redis is the last one. Okay, so let's make sure that we select. It would, even though in the course saying that Redis Cache, it is Azure Cache for Redis. They change those, those buttons, and some of the names are, remember I was telling you, Azure is still alive, which means that it is still update is still changing. So we have not locked down on no changes. So there is still changes always happening. So sometime you might not find the button that you see today. They might change the label, or it can move around. So be careful looking for those, but it's there. It does have to look for it. Okay. So all that's set. We are going in for the DNS name. We wanted to name Contoso Sports app with your initial. So make sure, let's get this up. So that is our DNS name. So I am going to add, okay, I can just add, it takes mine. I don't know if I can put initial there. No, okay, don't like that. May. Okay, so make sure you put initial. So notice that your DNS name also is whatever you name .redis.cache.windows.net. All right. Subscription, you're going to choose the subscription that was given to us. So we don't really have a lot of option there. I only have one there. Under the resource group, we are going to select that create new blue link. In that create new blue link, and then we're going to go find the name. They want us to name redis.rg with our initial. So I might already have one, so I am going to all right. And location, remember what I told you. You can use anything you want other than East US. Stay away from East US today. So I'm just choosing West US. Okay. Let's look at the pricing tier just to show you guys that they're all available pricing. We have premium, which is the recommended, which you can have up to 6 gigabyte of cache. You know as well as I do, right? The higher the cache it is, the more you can store. So the cache you can do that through anything from standard is 1 gigabyte. Premium is 6 gigabyte of cache. Of course, you're going to be paying for it as well, but also it creates replication for us if we do premium. I'm just going to choose premium just to show you guys. I don't want you guys to choose premium. I just want to choose basic C0, which I'll change back later, but I just want to show you when you select premium, what options you get to see. So if I choose premium, it will say Redis cluster. You have to enable the cluster, and you have to say how many servers are, how many applications are going to share that cluster. So you have like share count. You can add the share count. The highest share count is 10. You cannot have more than 10 in a cluster, in each cluster. Okay, we can go into, yeah, not worry about that. Data persistent, you need to either disabled, RDP, or AOF. So they have different ones. You have virtual network also. You have to create these before you come in. So if you don't create it, you don't have those. I just want you to be able to see the different parameters. I am going to go back and switch it back to basic. So also same with you guys. So we have a DNS name. Next to that DNS name, make sure that you have a green check mark. We have choose a subscription that you belong to. We created a new resource group. Location, make sure you do not select East US. Choose anything other than East US. Pricing tier, we choose basic C0, which is 250 megabyte of cache. Now we are going to go click. Before we click create, I wanted to show you also, if you scroll to the bottom, the last one, you should see there is a box, checkmark box, say unblock port 6379. If it's not SSL encrypted, if you want to unblock it, but in general, we're going to block that port 6379 because it is not secure port. All right. We can also select, and you know, I don't want you guys to select, I just want you to look at my screen for a second. You can go add that automation. So if you do automation, means that if you have a template, once you create it and you want to deploy it all, this is where you can come in and put it into a template. You can make this a template, and you can use that template next time, or you can use a template in other locations or other, you can share with everyone else in the portal. But notice that based on the form that we were choosing and selecting, we were typing in and we selected a drop down. This is what you're going to see. It tells you what the name is, the location, the SKU is basic, family is C, capacity, Redis configuration. So if we have special configuration stuff we want to add, this is where you can go add. It tells you API version. It tells you sometime if you're doing coding, you might be interested in API version, because based on that, you might have to install different type of what the version of your Nike package and all that depends. Microsoft.cache Redis, so you can look at all of that. It tells you what the schema is, where the schema that template.json is that we're pulling it from, and content version. So notice that that's a template. We can also, this is an automation. We can look at, we have this, you can do it in CLI, PowerShell. If you're a big time coder, you want to do it in .NET or Ruby and Rails. So these are all different options you have. You can add to the library, you can deploy all that stuff. I am going back to the new disk cache, but that's an automation option. So I just want to show you that those are there. We're not using it today, but if you're a serious coder, you might be interested in those. All right, validation come back successfully, guys. You have a green check mark and say validation successful. That we are going to select create. If your validation does not come back successful, this is the time to tell me. So let's go ahead and click on create. And everybody knows that how to look up in the notification, right? Most of we've been talking about that. The notification button is right there. I don't know why my machine is running so slow. I don't know why is it running so slow? I don't know why, but okay. Okay, so notification button is the one between the setting, like the gear button, gear and the filter, like a funnel, between the two, that little, I call it bell button. It's like a ringing bell, like you ring the bell. That ringing bell button, that is our notification. In the notification, it will tell you, it will tell us deployment in progress. Okay, that takes a couple of minutes, I think. So once it's created, okay, so the next thing we're going to do is verify the data. So once it's come back, we're going to go into that instance. We call it Redis Cache instance, and we're going to go into the Redis Cache instance. You can go in through all resources, or from that notification and say go to resource. You can either click that button, or under the all resources, we are going to go in and select that Redis Cache instance. We have never been to the Redis Cache console, so I want to make sure you guys have experience on having that experience to do that. So we might not have permission to do anything in there, but at least I want you to have, and I know you guys are not going to use Redis Cache, that's what Pradeep was telling, but it's good to know. Knowing more is not going to hurt you, right? Knowing less might hurt you, but knowing more is not going to hurt you. So, at least that's how I believed. Yeah, my machine is absolutely stuck. I don't know why. It is slow as hell. Okay, maybe I need to close all the windows. What's I have? Let me close some stuff down here. Might help me. Okay. No, yeah, I don't want no matter picking from the tab. So maybe close my email window. Okay. Is you guys still at deployment in progress, right? Yeah, machine's going to take the sweet time. That's okay. We got time to get through this. And also, I was going to tell you guys that if you're new with Azure Portal, I know most of you guys are familiar with, you guys have been using 9 or 10 months. And even if you're not new, but notice that in the very in your dashboard, you should see these quick start tutorials. So that quick start tutorials, those are a good one to do. Those are also in that learning site, that the link I gave you guys, but here also they have it. So it just, it's not like a course like we do here, but it just a little topic and you say, hey, I want to know how to do this. I want to know how to go deploy a Linux virtual machine, either Ubuntu server or something. This is where you can go do, and it's pretty quick and dirty, but you can look at the tutorials, which is very beneficial. And when we are waiting for this, also, if you guys wanted to look at my screen for a second, I can show you a couple of things here. I know I'm repeating some of the stuff because sometimes, maybe the first time you guys didn't hear me, but okay, so when you create, a lot of time people ask me that, can you have multiple dashboard? And the answer is yes, and you do want to have multiple dashboard if you're working on a multiple projects, or you carry a multiple, if you wear multiple roles, so you might want to create a dashboard. So you can create as many dashboard as you want, as long as you have permission. Okay. Now, also, once you create a dashboard, and also if I have multiple subscription, so if I have more than, if I go to client side and I wanted the same dashboard look on my client side, I can upload my dashboard to another subscription. I can download from another one into here as well. I can clone my dashboard, and I can share my dashboard with my team members, and you can create another new dashboard. You can create as many dashboard as you want. I don't know if you guys know that or not, so I just want to tell you that. As well as, if you look at it, these are all, Microsoft is following we're following the same standard that we had for Windows 8 and 10. These are all we call tiles. So tile means that if you put mouse over, you can see those ... they call eclipse. I always call it ... very scientifically. So if you do that ... it allows you to customize it or remove from the dashboard. And notice that these are you can move these if you want to. If you want to move, so if I wanted to customize it, now if I just click customize, notice that these are all kinds of things that you can add to. You can add a markdown, you can go to marketplace, you can bring in video if your organization allows you to do that. You can run a history of logic apps. So these are all different. Depends on what you do at your organization and what are the things that are important to you. You can put those in the gallery here. So it's a good one to have. And if there's a particular, especially if you're a team leader, if you're a manager, you will bring that users group in so you can monitor other users, what they're doing as well. Or if they're creating something, you can tell. And you can so these are all the different tile gallery you have, and you can also create custom ones, but custom ones has to be in code. But if you create a custom tile gallery, or you export it from somewhere, then you use it here as well. You can use those, you can bring those in. So there's a lot of cool stuff here. If you wanted to do a search into the application insight, and all I had to do is drag that in and drop it. So pretty cool stuff that you can do. In here, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with these, but I thought it'd be a good thing to do. And I have a bunch of stuff I need to delete here too. So I can't remove from the dashboard. I got too many of the time clock, not found. I mean, these are things that I was just playing around. That's a different one that I pulled up. So as you can see, there's all kinds of things that you can do in the dashboard. Okay, so I'm letting it create this thing. And also people out there, can you have more than one session in the Azure portal? You can have as many sessions that your organization allow, that if you want 2 or 3 Azure portal session or not, or you just want to have one. If I'm trying to do maybe sometime do 2 different things, I might want to have 2 sessions, of the portal running. So you can run as many sessions as your organization allows you to. Per users, administrators should limit that how many sessions per user you can open. Per user should be able to open, because we don't want people opening so many sessions that I can bog down, our connections and internet and stuff like that. So we are going to do things, and once this come back again, this is taking longer then, but once it's come back, we're going to do stuff in the Cloud Bash shell. We saw the code earlier, but the same thing that we did in Cloud Shell, you can do it from Azure. You can do it between Visual Studio as well if you're a Visual Studio person. So like web.config file and stuff, you can go in and change that. So that's what I was doing. You can install Nuggets package and install different packages and stuff. So things that we're doing today. I'm trying to do it in the Bash shell in Azure CLI because I know some of you guys don't have Visual Studio, and even if you have Visual Studio, some of you may not have the permission to some of the tools to install some of the tools. So that's why I went that route. But you can do it. You can do the same thing that we're going to do in the CLI and Visual Studio as well. So is it still running? Oh my God. Anybody come back yet? Still 10 minutes ago. All right. That is still going. So anything that also you see in this, your menu bar, they create a resource, home, your dashboard, also resource groups, quick start center, all of these are all that you can pull it into your dashboard if you want to do a custom dashboard. Okay, and so I know some of you, I showed this to you, some of you guys might already see this once already, but if you haven't seen it, I might try to go into this today if we have some time. This is Microsoft Hands-On Lab site, which is Microsoft Learning site also, and this is the site is free. All you need to is Microsoft Live account, and you guys have been studying Microsoft and working with Microsoft's products. You should have Live account anyway. So in a Live account, these are a lot of things that you can do in the Live account. And there, as you can see, there is that many self-paced course. So if we have time today, we might go into one, play with it. Just want to show you guys. But this is a very, very good site. And if you haven't seen it, if you're new with this, I highly recommend you to go in and play with it. And again, we don't have to, you don't have to spend a lot of time, if you have, in the weekend, if you have 2 hours, well, I don't really do this. This is not what I do. I'm not in a day in the life of a Teams admin. That's, Microsoft is moving from Skype to Teams meeting, right? You can go the self-paced lab, it's inside the lab, inside it does provide not only the instruction, it does provide you with the, still running, it does provide you with a Microsoft portal access to. It give you a portal and you're doing the lab, as it said, self-paced lab, but it is a hands-on lab, so you get to actually do the lab as well. So out of that 151 topic, it'd be interested to, so I don't know if they have any. There's a lot of good stuff in there that for you to do. I don't know, see if I beat this here. No. I know there's stuff about with Regis in there, maybe. Sure. So as you can see, there's so many different ones. These are all free for you at your convenience anytime. So it all depends on how much you want to know, right? The more you want to know, the more that may be something, okay, I'm not really a database person or I don't do big data, but people are talking about big data and Hadoop. I want to go find out what big data is, what is Hadoop is. So this will be a good exposure for you guys to go in and play with it. And this one, we don't have to worry about, you don't have to have Visual Studio, you don't have to have anything, because they provide everything inside the lab. This comes with the lab environment and you don't have to do anything. So it's a pretty cool stuff to do. You can also develop apps with Azure database for PostgreSQL. Postgres has been a very big popular one people have been using. So there's a lot of stuff that you can play in here with Azure, and there is a lot of good information there. So I highly recommend you guys to pay attention to that and spend some time in there. All right. My deployment has succeeded. Did anybody deployment came back yet? because everybody has a different machine speed, so we all may not be at the same spot. I'm going to give a couple minutes to make sure everybody has it. Can anybody confirm that yours come back yet? And you can communicate with me through Skype chat as well, right? You know that. And I'm a big tax person because taxing is easy for me. And if I'm teaching stuff, if something important, I can still read the tax if it's important, right? So I'm putting my phone number in the Skype chat so you guys can see. So if you want, you can't communicate with me through the Skype chat. You can still communicate me through. You can't talk to me for whatever reason. If you don't have a speaker or anything like that. It was you can still text me. Okay, I just want to share. And I'm going to, before we go in, I'm just going to provide you my phone number here as well. And I know out of the country, I don't know how the text works, but I do have Viber, if anybody uses Viber. So that's my phone number, 473149142. You can use that to text me if you need me, okay? Just to make sure you have every way to communicate with me. And some people might have, and here's my email address as well. I have provided to you guys before, but for new people that if you guys were here today, you didn't have this. These are my information. So please take a couple of seconds to write that down, just in case if you need me. Or even if you don't need me and you don't need me anything, or you just want to come and say hi, you're welcome to text me or email me or call me and let me know, okay? All right, so we are going into my Reader's Cache instance. You can click by go to resource here. Why do they keep saying unsaved data? I already created. What do you mean it's unsaved? Okay, so let's look at a couple of things here. I want to make sure you guys see this. So if you're looking at the most important thing is that if you're looking at somebody, if you're looking at someone or somebody said, oh, they already created Azure Cache for readers, you want to look at a couple of things here. So we are in the overview blade. If you weren't able to go in from notification like I did, you can also still find this. You can go back into resource group. And you know which resource group we created. Go into that resource group. In that resource group, you should see your Azure Cache for Redis instance, and you can go in from the instance from that as well, from the all resources or going from the resource group. Pick the resource group, you put the cache, you create this cache instance in. Now we are in there. Every time we open any resources from in Azure, it always show up in the overview blade. In the overview blade, if you notice that we have two columns on the top, resource group status is running. So you want it, this is where it's going to tell you it's running and what is your basic is, location, pay as you go, your subscription ID, your host name. It tells you the port. It's a port, non-SSL port is disabled. Keys, and sometimes we would enable that if I need to move data or stuff like that, I can enable it for temporarily, but it's not a good practice because it's not SSL secure. It's not a secure line. Keys, you can look to go to show that key. Best practices, if you want to know more about Redis, this is where you go look into the best practices. What's a new feature? New feature, we are using aka.ms. So anyway, so that's where you can tell all the memory and usage and all that stuff here. So everybody able to open in your, you guys are in your overview, right? All right, I assume that I'm not hearing for anybody, so I assume that everybody's in. So now we are in here. We are going to go into the console. The console button is right next to, it's on the main top menu bar where we are in the, again, you got to make sure you are in the Azure Cache for Redis. We are in the overview blade, top of the overview blade. On the right side where we have those resource group that we have that 2-column, right above that, there is a console button. Everybody able to locate that? And let's click on that console button. So that's a console. There's not a lot of things we can do in console. I don't think I can do that. We can try the one. If you look in the thing, you can ping. Yeah, so, okay, so notice that I can ping, and these commands we wanted to try here. So this is the commands, you can just type it. There's only like one command, ping. If you say ping, it's going to say pong, that's the output. And we say, yeah, it pinged successfully. You're pinging to yourself. Set test one, ping, then you're pinging to the server. You can do set test one. Say okay. We are looking at console. Get test. Okay, so this is just telling that we were able, this is you're doing it on the console. This is on the console as a live reader server and is running it on an external site, not where we are. So we have to be careful. But was everybody able to get into the console? I didn't make it too complicated. I just want to make it easy, but I want you guys to see how the console looked like. So not like, okay, we took the session, but we never seen the console. Everybody able to?
We are unable to do the ping and all. It's showing the connection failure or something like that.
You had a connection failure?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Well, okay. Well, one thing, do you have, you guys might have a firewall block. Is it say firewall block anything?
Yeah, same thing. Computer's firewall processor allow outbound TCP traffic to port.
Okay, so you guys don't have, because this is going out to the externals, right? So maybe you have firewall block. But is anybody in your group, do they have the same problem same location where you're at? Did everybody get blocked? Anybody were able
I
to?
can, yeah, I was able to do it.
Oh, okay. She said, okay, and I'm sorry, your name was
Ruchi.
Ruchi.
Yeah.
Are you the same as where,
yeah, where Short is there. Yeah.
Shona, she said she can do it. Did you hear her?
Yeah, I was able to do it.
She was able to do it. Are you guys in the same location?
Yeah, we are at the same location. He's sitting.
Okay, so you did something wrong then you need to go back and recreate it.
Okay.
Because yeah, if she can do it, you should be able to do it because I'm sure you guys are going off the same network.
Okay.
So but the question the thing is saying that you have a firewall block though. But that's what it meant. But if she's doing it, you should be able to do it though. Go back and create another Redis cache. Anybody else had a problem other than Shonya was? Everybody able to get in? Get to play with the console a little bit, not too fancy, but it's important that you do. So if we're looking at this also, like I was telling you guys earlier, in the middle section you see where the overview, activity log, all that. That is what we call configuration section. All right, so we are going under the settings in the middle configuration section right now. We are in the overview blade. If you scroll down to under the settings, we are going to go into access keys. Okay, in the access key, we have a primary, secondary. Those are the first primary, secondary. Those are primary key and secondary key. And the last one is primary connection string to stack exchange.readers. So we are going to copy. So let's go ahead and again copy command. You can see that there is a blue icon next to that string. So we're going to use that to copy that primary connection string. And everybody, you got to make sure you put it in a notepad or somewhere. We can come back and get it again too if you lose it, but that's where we want to store it. So we're going to put it, that connection string. We're going to need that connection string to stack exchange.redis. That's where we need to go into for your use within your application setting for that stack exchange.redis package that we're going to use, So now we need to go into, make sure that you copy that. Now you have a primary connection string. That's what we just copied. And for me, I'd like to put a label on it, because if I don't, after a while, I will forget what this comes from. This is primary connection string, I'm sorry. Now we need to go get a host name. We saw the host name already on the top. We saw there's a host name, but they want us to look at a host name from a different location. In the different location, the host name is in the properties. So in that same where we had that access key under the settings, you're going to go to properties. And when you click on properties, you're going to see the host name is the very top one. We are going to click on that icon, copy icon, and we are going to paste it into our notepad. So for later keepsake, we're going to keep that for a second, but I want to also stay on the property and look at it. So notice that SSL port is 6380. That is a default SSL port. If you want to use Redis, you cannot change that SSL port. You want to make sure you use the same port. You can change it, but there are issues if you change it. So you need to make sure that that port is available. So that is if you are not the network administrator in your organization, you need to go find somebody to make sure that they will set it up. Make sure that that port is available. If you cannot go out, that is your SSL port issue. Make sure that the location is what you choose. Notice that Redis version is 3.2.7. We are good there. You have, that's your resource ID, subscription name, subscription ID. Again, we don't have any availability zone. So it's always good to see what's in the property. So we know what the stuff in the property is. So once we get we copy the host name, right? Everybody got, so now we have a primary connection string and we have a host name. We got two of those. Now we're going to go back to the overview blade. So stay in the overview blade. All right. Okay, so we are going to use going into a Cloud Shell, and we are going to create, so let's look at the document before we do it so we know what our plan is. I just want to make sure that we don't get lost here. So what we just did is that we went to get went into the setting access key for our instance, and we got the primary connection string, and we went into the property and get the host name. So now we are going to create a console application, Redis console application, guys. All right. So, and if you're not a developer, this will be a little bit tricky, so stay with me on this. So first, we are going to go into a Cloud Shell, and we are again make sure it's Bash. My apologies. I don't know why I have PowerShell in here, so I have to change that. So make sure we are going to select the Cloud Shell icon. We are back in the portal. Cloud Shell button is right next to the filter button. It's from the left. If you're going from right to the left, it is the last one in line before you see that big search box. And I'm not sure we have any new people, so I'm just assuming that we do, and I'm talking this first time you're going. I'm sure if you've already been here, it's like, why is she telling me 100 times? If I'm repeating the same thing for 100 times, my apology. I just want to make sure that we don't have any issue. All right. Once we make sure we are in the Bash shell, guys. Once we are in the Bash shell, we are going to go copy that command. I did put it after the image at the bottom. I have that .NET new console. So we are creating a .NET console application. Okay, and dash name. Make sure that you wanted to name. Put your put your initial after the name, okay? That's your initial after the name. right, we are going to copy that in. Okay. All right, so .NET new console dash dash name, and we're going to click enter. Yeah, this is taking a couple minutes. I already had it, I ran it earlier, so it just mine is restoring it. You guys should be the first time creating it, so it should say succeeded. Okay, so now we are going to continue with the next one. And what is we're going to do, we're going to create a folder for our project. So we are going to okay, I didn't, there's one we're going to have to type in. I did not make that for you guys. I don't know why I didn't do that, but I will do, and I think I'm missing something there too. Sports stats tracker. Okay, so make sure you get into the directory. So now we are in the sports stats tracker directory. Okay. And once we are in that directory, now this is where the connection string is going to come in. But before we do that, we need to create a touch app settings.json. So touch is what we use to create a new file. That file is an empty file. We're just creating a blank file called app settings under that sports tracker. Okay, so we just create a empty file called app settings.json under the sports start tracker. Sonia, did you go back, Michelle, did you go back in and create the Azure cache for Redis, or are you trying to do that? I mean, it's going to take a while to create it, though. But hopefully you can catch up when we take another break, okay? Okay, all right. So we are in the fsetting.json file. Once we create the fsettings.json file, we're not going to Visual Studio. We want to stay in here because I know some of you guys don't have. So we are going to do code, which I don't have it in the code, so just to look at my screen if you want to. Code space period. We need to go into the code editor. I know some of you guys already done this and know that. Okay. So when I do code space period, that means that you are going into Cloud Shell editor. It's like in Linux, we do a VI editor. So this like that. This is very close to it. So when we do that, and if you're new with the editor, be very, very careful, please. But when you do code space period, and we are in the editor, on the left side, you should see the files. So make sure that we select fsettings.json. Okay, notice that fsetting, make sure that on the left it is pointing to fsettings.json file. Fsettings.json, and notice that fsettings.json is empty, and we know it's empty. So now what we need to do is we need to go back to document, and we are going to create that cache connection in the JSON file. There's only one line, but you do have an open and close curly braces. I will copy that into the notepad. Where you, and where that value to go, that's where you go to put your primary connection string. You don't need the bracket, but you do need the quotes. So go and replace that, your value go here with, you're going to replace that with your primary connection string. You're going to put that in, and then copy that whole thing. Copy that whole thing line, and copy that into your fsetting.json in your Cloud Shell. Okay, mine didn't like something. Okay, because it should have there. And I need to delete this thing out. All right. So make sure it should say cache connection colon, and cache connection in double quote colon, and in double quote you should have your primary connection string. So far so good, everybody. Then you go, if you have that in, copy that into app.setting.json file in your Azure Cloud Shell. And in the furthest right, you have that ... You're going to select that ... that you clip and save. You need to make sure you save the file. Okay, once we have saved the file, and what normally I do is that I'll go down to, on the files, I'll click the program.cs file, and I'll come back and click app.setting.json to see that what I put in is still there. Okay, if still there, so we know we had put in a connection string. We save the changes. Remember that we go to that ... on the furthest right within the editor and drop down, click save. Now, we are going to open the next file we're going to open, and in the document tells us to, that we are going to open sportstatstracker.cs proj file. So we are going to open that file. That is, again, in the file, make sure that you are in sportstatstracker.cs proj file. Okay. Give me 1 second. Item group, app settings.json, blah, blah, blah. At the following, okay, and I don't think I gave you guys this item group here. For some reason, it wasn't in the document. Was it in the document? I don't think it was in the document. I don't know how I missed that. It wasn't in the document. Okay, my apology for that. I am going to put it in there. It's only a few lines, guys. I put it in the, again, I put it in the Skype chat, but for people that don't have Skype chat, I'm sorry, but this is what you're going to have to type in. And before you type in, I'm going to tell you exactly where you can type in. Okay, format. I wanted to make the font bigger for you. I don't know about you guys, but I'm blind. It was bad, so I had to be in bigger. I don't see it. Okay, so this is what the item group you're adding. So you're adding this 5-line. You're lucky if you have access to the chat in Skype. I pasted in there for you. If not, you're going to have to type this in, and I'm going to tell you where you need to type it in. So if you're looking at, I would recommend you to look at my screen for a second too. Well, you can need to look at it for a little bit. So if you notice that when you open that sportstatstracker.cs proj file, you do not have this item group right here. And this is where you need to put the item group. It's going to show up open project, close project. That's what you have. You need to have item group above that project. So that's where you need to put it. And what you need to put it is here. So this is what you need to type in. I'm sorry, I don't know how I missed that in the document. I will have to add that in the document. So let me know, everybody able to see it or able to copy it. Ruchi, were you okay? Were you guys able to paste that in?
Yeah, I was able to. I was
Okay,
able to paste that.
Okay, good. All right. Do you think everybody had a chance to paste it? Okay, so we had changed it and added to the package. We had an item. I am going to paste that so you have it. All right, so now once we have it in, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to run this Microsoft.extension.configuration.json file. We're going to add the package. So add that package. So go ahead and copy that. I'm going to add that. Make sure we save what we did here. So copy and save it. After we copy and save it, we're going to get out of the editor. It's the same place that you have the save and that ... You're going to close editor. Make sure you're back at the prompt. And we are still in Sports Stacks Tracker folder. And we are going to paste that. .NET package, Microsoft.extension.configuration.json file. Okay, so let's run it. Uh-oh. Why am I having a problem? Okay, sorry. Project, package name, what is it say? Dependency graph for project. Is it cannot add package reference. .NET add package name, title open and Did you guys got an error too? Package name? We are giving the package name. What do you mean?
After saving this item group in Star Sports Tracker, what do we do next?
Okay, are you, which step? Sorry.
We copied the item group from the Skype chat and
Item
put
group,
it in
yeah, you're going to
Sports
save it,
Tracker.
yeah, so that's where I'm at the, so after you're going to do that and save it, then you're going to exit out of the editor.
Okay.
Now we're going to the next step. Add support to read a JSON configuration file. I don't know why I'm getting that problem. And that's the statement 7.8. .NET add package, Microsoft.extension.configuration.json. It's not liking my statement though. Do you guys were able to add it, or are you having the same problem? Was anybody able to run that statement? .NET. I was able to run other .NET. .NET new console. Maybe it doesn't like that. I'm in that directory. Pradeep, do you guys able to run that .NET package thing, adding package? You guys able to run that or no? 7.8, .NET add package, Microsoft.extension.configuration.json. Did anybody able to run that?
For me, it's still running actually.
So it did run. Huh. It ran it for you. I don't know why it's not running it for me. Okay, I ran it last night. It worked, so I don't know why it's not running. But you are running the Microsoft.extension.configuration.json, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's when it complete. It's sending the log that restored completed.
Okay.
In 25 seconds. Yeah.
Restore completed. Why is it restored? It shouldn't be restored. Anybody else were able to create? But you created, you installed it in your Sports Star Tracker folder, right? You're in there.
Yeah.
I don't know why I cannot run mine. I don't know. Hold on. Console name. You just run it the way it is. You didn't change anything. It's a JSON file. I don't know why I cannot add that nugget packet. Microsoft.extension.configuration.json. I don't know why. It's giving me an error. Okay. All right. Don't know why. Let's say the project title to operate is on. Package name, the package reference to add. That's not the error. What's the error is here? Okay. Multiple root elements, line 9, position 4. Create dependency for a project. Support.cs project cannot add package reference. I don't know what the problem is. Okay, I want to go into code.js to see what the problem is. I did have a program.cs, but I don't see CS proj file. Okay, so let's try proj. I don't know why I can run it, but if you guys can run it, that'd be good. All right, we'll continue here. And so Shoni, are you able to run the previous, now is it working? That means that you can bring up the console, right?
Yeah, I have saved the code, but I am not able to run this query.
You cannot run which script?
This one only, the last one, the
7.8?
7.8, yeah.
7.8, .NET add package, Microsoft extension, and configuration.json. What are you getting error?
I'm getting the errors.
Are you going to say, mine getting it too? I don't know. I'm getting some weird ones too. What is the error saying? There's not much to change. I don't know what the problem is, but what error are you getting? I couldn't hear you. Oh, you're not. You're looking. So Sonia, what error are you getting?
The error I'm getting is the project file could not be loaded. The character cannot be included in the name, line 4, position 6.
That's so weird, though. That didn't make any sense. We don't have a lot of line of code in here yet to have a problem. I don't know. All right, well, let's just continue. Well, hopefully, we'll have to still go back and look at it at that one point. I don't know why. So .NET Core application requires additional Nugget package to read a JSON configuration file, but I cannot add that package. I don't know why. Maybe it's already there. I don't know. Okay. Well, let's try to continue, at least if all the stuffs. We might get a problem that we can't connect at some point if we have a problem. But I expect a problem on this one. But okay, let's continue though, right? Hopefully. Now we're going into, we need to go into what file we're going into. So, well, some people are able to run, some people not, so I'm not sure what the problem is. It seems like it's not a syntax problem because some people are able to run it, right? All right, so we are going to add this to using to a program.cs file. And so go back into code.period. So you go back into the editor, so code.period, code space period, and on the left side you should see a program.cs. So in the program.cs file, you're going to, on the top where the using, you see the two-step using system. So now it should read using system, using Microsoft.extensions.configuration, and using system.io. So that's what it should read. My CS program.cs file should not look like the following. Definitely mine does not look like that. But I look like this at all. That should tell you that. So, okay. Your program.cs file. So this is everybody able to find the program.cs file, right? That's back in the editor. Go back into the editor, and you should see that. So if what we're saying is that, okay, so instead of replacing in the main method with the following code in app settings.json file, so instead of all of that, app settings.json file, so we need to have that 8.0 command, file config, all that. So go back into, we're doing a lot of copy and paste, so be careful with that. In the app setting.json file, we have our cache connection, and he wants us to have this file, main method. Do we have main method in there? And app setting.json, I don't see a main method in here. I'm missing something for sure. My file, because I think it didn't run. I don't have that. I only have a connection string in there.
I think we have to make in program file changes. That in the main method program file.
Yeah, but where and where?
Program file.
Oh, okay, programs.cs, is that where you
CS, yeah. Yep. And in the main method where console.
Okay, but I was going to go copy, but they're saying, but if you look at the note here, oh, sorry. Okay, so configure system to read from appsite.json file. So instead of doing that, I was just going to go here in 9.0. We could copy this whole thing. Make sure that that whole thing looks like this. You with me on that?
Yes.
So I'm just going to go copy this and replace it in the code instead of doing that step, which so I am going to go delete stuff here though. So I need to go delete namespace. Okay, so we have, good. Now we have, good. Now I have a programmer talking to me. Good. Are you a developer? Okay, so do you see that in the next step in 9.0? I put how the whole thing should look like. All the app settings.json program.cs file should look like. I'm sorry. Everybody was able to do that. I wasn't able to run the other thing, but I think I'm okay. We'll see. All right, once we have that in, everybody able to copy from, I bypassed one step because I know it's going to be in the other one. So instead of, you can go into the program.cs file and change the main method, or you can go to step 9.0 and just change the whole thing. Just copy that whole thing. That's how your program.cs file should look like. Okay. Now, everybody good so far? So we copy that in. Then in step 10, at the end of the main method, we're going to use a new config variable to retrieve the connection string and store it in a new variable named connection string. So we are going to add at the end of main method. So we're going to add that one line in step 10.0. The string connection, string config cache connection. We already put in cache connection value. We told them what cache connection value is earlier. So this should replace with whatever connect string that we put in cache connection in app setting. It should read from there. So we should be okay here. So everybody got the 10, right? At the end of the main method, we are adding that string connection string config cache connection. We're adding that line. Okay, once you get that, we are going to save this, and we are going to close the editor. Okay, once you close the editor, we are back in here. So we just run this cache connection, and we just add that. Now we're going to run this at a support for Redis cache.net client. So we're going to try to run that at the bottom of the Cloud Shell editor. So let's run that, see if we can run that one. I cannot run anything. I don't know why I'm having that error connection problem. Error message. The project file cannot be loaded. There are multiple root elements. 9 position for multiple root elements. I only have one type of element. What do you mean multiple root elements? Okay, well. Sonia, were you able to run that stock exchange Redis file? I think mine's already in there though.
For me, still not.
Is it still running?
Not working for me.
Not working for you. I don't know why that problem is either. I could get it to work on mine either. Ruchi, was that working on yours? Were you able to run the Redis?
Yeah, I was able to run.
Yeah, I don't know why I was able to run it last night. I don't know why I couldn't run it today. Maybe it's already there. Maybe that's why. I don't know how to look at it. I normally do this from Visual Studio, so doing it in here is new for me. But all right. So the next thing, well, let's just go to continue, and let's assume that one will come back and face it when we need to. And go back into the program.cs file. That we are going to look at in step 12. We are doing, so we need to add that, step 11.2, we need to add that using stack exchange.redis. So we need to go back and add that to program.cs file. And I'm going to have to type it in stack exchange.redis, which mine's going to be probably because I couldn't install it. Using stack exchange. Okay, once we add that to the library within that program.cs file, and we are going to save it. Okay, connection. Now we are going into the next step here in step 12, connect to the cache. So we already have some string connection, string equal config cache connection. We should already have that. So you really have to just add the last statement there. Var cache equal connection multiplexer dot connect connection string. We just need to add that last line there. We already had the string connection string in it in our program.cs file. So we're adding just one additional statement in there. Okay. And make sure we save the file. Okay, now we're going to add a value. Hopefully everybody is going through. We're good. I know there's some going to have. I know some of us running into problem. Add a value to the cache. Let's add a value to the cache. So we are going to add a using block. Connection has been created. We're going to use the get database method to retrieve iDatabase instance. So this is where we are going to add cache get database. So remember earlier when we pasted that block, that using block, there's nothing in there. There were just open and close bracket. The using var cache equal connection multiplexer dot connect. So in that's where we're going to go add this. iDatabase db equal cache dot get database. Everybody okay there? We're good at 13.1 is where I'm at. Able to save it, save this file. So the next thing we're doing, we're probably back to the document as well. Document on the 13.3, we're going to return a value from the string set onto the console. That's what we did last one. It's a Boolean set value, db string key, test key, some value, right? Like set value. So that to statement in 13.3, that's what we need to add. And next value we're going to do is using the input, and we're going to do an output. So in 14.3, you're saying it could look like this, but okay, so we just did this Boolean set test key some value, and now we set a variable value that we need to get the variable. So in 14.2, that is what you're adding, return value. And if you're not sure that you're adding in the right place, you can look at the last one there. The next one, it should tell you how the entire thing should look like in 14.3. So make sure in 14.3 your code look like that. So we have in the using var, we have id database equal db cache.get database, and the using method we add, and we have Boolean set value, we have string value. Okay, so make sure that all three block is in there. Okay, so these are in the under the using. We have that. We have console right line. So it's gonna write, and we have string value. And we have console right line to get, set, and get. Okay. Mine might not work because I couldn't install the other, but let's see. Like if you had everything saved, put it correctly, and when you close the editor, you should be able to run .NET run. And mine will have a problem, yeah. Build errors and run. Line 9 position for multiple root elements. Okay. Title cannot be loaded. project title cannot be loaded. Go to see it. I must have missed something here. Hey, Ruchi, were you able to run the .NET run?
Yeah, I was able to run that, and the set value was true, and the get value came as some value.
Okay, can you do me a favor? Can you look at my screen? See, I'm not seeing it. I'm missing something here. Can you look at this project file here, the sportstracker.cs project? Am I missing something here than yours?
Wait, I'll compare once.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a. I can't. I'm somehow you don't. When you look at it, you don't see it. I think I don't need to have a project here. The project should be closed here, not here. At line 8. Do you think that's a problem?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you have what's on your line 8?
Just a minute. Yeah, mine doesn't have the close project above, right? I'll copy and paste my
Yeah. Let me look at it. Yeah, because it's so small, I couldn't see it. I need to make it bigger. Because I couldn't see. Yeah, I think it's something in here is missing. Because I know Sonia can't get it working too. So I wanted to see, make sure he can get it working.
I sent you in the chat.
Thank you, sweetie. Okay. So you got the value. Anybody else? Pradeep, were you guys able to get it working? Okay, so mine. I'm going to go to project. Yeah, I think I have the wrong place. The project is closed. Okay, property dupe. Okay, you only have one project. Okay, let me copy that, put it in Notepad to make sure I'm copying it right. All right, if you get it working, we're going to come back and play more. Let's go ahead and take our 15-minute break. We'll come back at 9:15 and we'll do another lap, okay? If you get it working, and if you haven't get it working, you can stay with me. I'm trying to solve mine, and I'll try to see if I can help you solve yours. All righty? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's meet back at 9:20. It's not 9:20 Eastern Standard Time, all right? Okay, so item group, as I close the item group, close the item, account. Okay, okay, but we have that group because they was able to install that. Okay, but property group. Okay, yeah, that's what I think my problem is. Okay, I need to delete that. And I should look at the okay, item group. Okay, and property group has output type, frame, app setting. Okay, property group, plus a project. Okay. All right, I think that's my problem. So I need to go back and run that 9. Sonia, can you see my screen? Maybe you went on mute. Can you see my screen?
Sorry, actually.
I think, yeah, can you look at the sportstatstracker.cs project file? Can you make sure your file looks like mine? I think that was my problem. I had an extra line in there because I couldn't see well here.
I'm now able to add the JSON file. I'm able to run that.
Oh, you can run it? Okay, what did you change? Just so I know.
I just copied from that Skype.
Oh, from her? Yeah, I think so. We had it, yeah. Something was wrong in there, right? Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Then yeah. All right. I'll just remind to make sure. Yes. Okay. So after we run, so we not, I have to go back and run that .NET file. So that configuration.json file. Yeah, that's 7.8. All right. Everybody's back. We are going into a different here. First of all, can you guys make sure that you guys have a Microsoft Live account? And if you don't have one, you can create it when we go into this particular one we're going to go into, Microsoft Live account. Now, before we go into the lab environment, I want to take you guys to the Microsoft Lab environment. We need to make sure that you are going to log out of your Azure portal. And when you log in, when we go into Microsoft Live account, make sure when we go into the lab, I'll remind you guys again and again, when we go into the lab environment, when we're in the lab environment, they will give us a username password for the portal, for Azure portal. Please do not use your username password that you log in for the portal that we're doing the lab with on every day, as well as do not use any personal account with the Azure portal. If you had your own Azure and you have a username password already, you cannot use them. You have to have a different live account. Okay, you need to make sure that you are not using your own account. All right, so first of all, we are going to, I'm not hearing from anybody, so I'm assuming everybody have a live account. And if you don't have it, you can create it right then and there. To have Microsoft Live account, you must have a Gmail or Hotmail or any type of email. I think mine is Gmail. You want to create that. You can go and create that account now if you don't have one. You want to have a spare one. You want to use that account that just for doing the Microsoft Lab. So you want to create a Gmail account first, and then we go make sure that we're going to use that Gmail account. Make sure that you can access that account before we can go into, in order to do the lab environment. So, okay, so everybody good? Let's make sure that you have a live account that we can use first of all. So we are going to go in and make sure that you close your Azure portal that you're in. You need to make sure you logged out of it. And if you are using Chrome like me, make sure you're not logged into Chrome with any email address. So I normally would click on it. So it said exit person one. So you want to exit. You don't want to have login as anybody into the Chrome. If you're going to use a Chrome, if you don't have to use a Chrome, you don't have to. And for people, if you I put the link in the Skype chat, but it's also just Microsoft.com/hands-on-lab. So hands-on labs. If you just do www.microsoft.com/hands-on-labs. That's what we're going into. Everybody with me? I think I just closed. Did I close mine? I had it. I closed it. All right. Self-paced lab. Okay. So when we are in the self-paced lab, I'm going to do SQL. Okay, can anybody confirm you're able to, are you in the Hands-on Lab website? And on the Hands-on Lab website, I also put another, the name of the lab we're going to go through, Building ASP.NET Apps in Azure with SQL Database. I put that also in the Skype. And if you're not in Skype, you can search when you are in the hands-on labs. It is building ASP.NET apps in Azure with SQL database. Everybody able to locate that? Any confirmation from somebody that you guys are in? So when you're in that building ASP.NET apps in Azure with SQL database, and if you're not quite sure what I'm talking, please look at my screen. First of all, make sure that you have completely logged out of the Azure portal that we've been playing this morning. Make sure you're completely logged out. If you are using Chrome, can you please make sure that you are not logged into Chrome in any way? Then you can type in www.microsoft.com/hands-on-labs. In the hands-on labs, we will go into self-paced labs. In the self-paced lab, we were looking at building ASP.NET apps in Azure with SQL database. That in that block, you should say it said 60 minutes, and there is a launch blue button. Can anybody tell me you're there? Ruchi, Sonia, any of you guys?
We are able to do it. Oh.
You can see it? You're able?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to click the launch button, everybody. I'm not a robot. Bus. All right. That's a bus. Oh, that's a bus. But okay, maybe I'll do that's a bus. Verified. Agree. Now this is when the sign in, when it prompt the sign in, you will use your Microsoft Live account. Here you're going to use the Live account for Microsoft credential and say, let this app access your info. Demand needs your permission to your basic profile. Yeah. Go away. So make sure that you can log in using Microsoft Live account. And launching your lab, it will take a few minutes. My machine has been slow today. I don't know why. I got to go back and see why my machine is slow. Maybe I need to close the Visual Studio thing too. That might just close it down, might help. Close down my email too. I'm going to give it a couple seconds to make sure. It shouldn't take that long to log in. I don't know why it's taking that long. Anybody hit the launch button and you're in the lab environment yet?
For us also it's the black screen.
You're still looking at a blank screen?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that it's just building the lab. It shouldn't take that long to build a lab. I'll give it a couple more minutes before I start panicking. Maybe I could use a different site too. LearnDemand.com event launch. Sign in complete. I don't know why it's taking that long. It shouldn't take that long at all. Okay, I'm going to log in with a different one, I think. I'm going to see if, okay, I'll go back into one thing I need to make sure. I don't have anything logged in. Okay, I'm not logging, am I?
On the bicycle came up, your lab environment is being built.
It failed?
No, it's being built. The
What
lab
does
will be
that,
ready in about 20 seconds.
what does that mean? Oh, come on. I have all day here. Go away. I'm just going to. Now that looks a little bit bad. Your lab environment is being built. Okay, that just looks a little better. The other one just blank. I don't know what happened. About 30 seconds. It's at 1 minute and 7 seconds. Anybody in yet in the lab environment yet? Or is that still going? Can anybody confirm that you're in like me? If you're not in yet,
My lab is getting ready in 30 seconds. It is being built.
it's not being prepared. Okay. So
Yeah.
when it's so prepared, can you look at my screen for a minute? I just want to show you a couple
Yes.
things. Okay. So if you look, I am in the lab now. So if you look at on the top furthest left, you see that little thunderbolt. That is command. So if you click on that, it should tell you Control Alt Delete. So to log into this is a virtual machine, you go to select Control Alt Delete from that Thunderbolt from the command. Don't click Control Alt Delete from the keyboard, it will kick you out because we are in the virtual machines. So make sure you select Control Alt Delete from there. And if you look down to in the commands under type text, we can type the username and password. So you just go to select that. We don't have to type anything in. Okay? So make sure that. And notice that on the furthest right, that is the instruction. So this is something even without me, I want you guys to be able to do. So notice that there is a couple of tabs. We have instructions tab, and there is a resource tab telling you we only have one machine, one DevOps 2019 base machine. We have instruction machine, and tells you what the prerequisite and all that. But notice that in the exercise, it'll tell you step by step, and it'll tell you that to log in as so-and-so. So we were logging at that particular username was password provided to you in exercise 1 with test 1. So we'll go through the steps. So it's not that complicated, but if you're new with the lab, and also if you look at the furthest right of the lab, on the top, you see that hamburger stacker on the furthest right corner, right top. That is your menu. When you're done, you can end it, but this is where you're going to end or split the windows. Okay? So that's a couple of things. And next to that Thunderbolt command right here, that is your display. So if you want to do full screen, you can do a full screen there. All right. Let me know when you're in. You're Sonia. How about Sony? Sonia, are you in?
Your name is actually shorter.
What happened?
Spell is shorter.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Are you getting an error?
No, I'm in, but my name is shorter. So I can see.
Shorter. Okay, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Shorter.
no problem. No problem.
Shorter? How do you spell that to get shorter?
Shorter.
Shorter, shorter.
Yeah.
Okay, shorter. Okay. Are you in? I'm just waiting to make sure
Yeah, me and Ruchi are in.
Ruchi's in too. Okay, so you guys are looking at it now. So let's go, and first thing we want to do, so I am going through the exercise 1. Okay, so let's look at the overview really quick. In this lab, you'll learn about the wiki features of Azure DevOps, which is a new functionality, which is good to know. Server 2019, so this is a brand new functionality. Enables easier collaboration experience for development teams. Each project in Azure DevOps is now support in its own wiki. They have their own, which enables you to conveniently write pages that help you team members and other users understand, use, and contribute to your project. So, Project Azure DevOps 2019 virtual machine provided by Microsoft. Click the button below to launch that virtual machine on Microsoft Hands-on Lab portal. So I think we already have that. I think we are on the virtual machine sheet here. So exercise 1, we are going to create and edit a project in there. So let's go to that Control-Alt-Delete button in that Thunderbolt, and let's select that Create Control-Alt-Delete, and they want us to log in as that particular user there. Raj. And again, I'm not sure I pronounced that, but session Raj. And now we are going to password. Again, you go to the Thunderbolt. I select type text, and you're going to type password. And we're going to log in as that individual. Okay. So once we are in, we guys in the Azure portal, we're not in the Azure portal, so we're in the VM now. We're going to launch an Internet Explorer. You should already see this is already installed for us, and that's why I wanted to do it here, because outside we have to install these a bunch of products. So now we're going to open up that PU DevOps portal. You see that blue once you're in the Internet browser page. So, okay, so notice that we're going to select that portal. All right. Parts limited. All right, everybody in the PU DevOps portal, which is PU stands for Parts Unlimited for that organization. You guys in there? Okay, once we are in, we are going to select the wiki. This is something new for you guys to see, a new functionality here. And we can select Create Wiki. We are going to create that. That is step 5. Okay, once we are in there, everyone on the same page, we create note. It's going to be a little bit different on some of the stuff here, but you can see the different things that we can do in here. I don't know if anybody familiar with that, y'all. So we are in there. We can create new things. We can edit. We don't really have anything new anything here, so we have to create things. I think we need to be in that window. We are in there. We are going to select Create. If you don't have that one up, you can create your first one. So get everyone on the same page. So we are going to enter the home as a title. We can add, so this is something that I want you guys to play with. If I don't know if you guys using any of these yet at your organization. The page title, so we gotta make sure page title continues added. We can discard it. So well, we can play a little bit in here. So here I wanted to add the title. You can add the page title here. We want it to be home. You can call anything you want to name there. Save that. And you can click on the drop down. But I want you to be familiar with going through the steps in here to get, you can see all the different stuff in here. So here at home, we can add something in here. So just you guys can play a little bit in there, try different things in there, and see what's stored, what is in store. It is always, these are stored in Git repo, and we can go into edit page and preview. You wanted to do new page. Notice that we have you can close this. You can open up the page if you want to do things in the page as well. You can see the dotted line. You can create numbered listed, insert a file, paste as HTML. So all these things that you can do here. We add a lot of new functionality here now. Open in a new tab. Do you want it to open that in a new tab? We wanted to play with it. So I'm just playing with it, trying to do different things. You can put different title. You can also add people, individuals to, contributors to your group as well. And if you wanted to add more stuff there, you can do things in there. So I want you guys to play in there to see what do you think. That anybody used this before? Have you guys used this before? It's the first time you're seeing it?
Yeah, we are seeing first time.
Is that something that you guys, are you a web developer?
Yeah, we are web developer.
So, but you heard of this, right? I mean, you heard of DevOps.
Yeah, we have heard, but not all of us are web developer.
Okay.
But yeah, few of us are.
But this was step by step, so it should be easier to follow, though, right? Okay.
Yeah, right.
That's the plan. So you can follow, or you can, if you're more familiar with it, or things that you want to try, you can try different things if you want to. Okay, we're going to open a new tab. And most of these are stored in Git repo, so you can always look into that. So if your group can edit and read files, you wanted to make sure that you can block from other people to reading it as well. We don't have a lot of pages, but if you have pages, this is where you can list. You'll see all your pages. Right now we only have one. So, and you can add subpages within your page. So if you wanted to be in the page, if you want to add subpages, you can add subpages. That's what they're showing here. We don't have subpages saved yet, so you can't add subpage yet. You can drag and drop, paste to select files, to insert. You can do all of that. Drag and drop, paste it from, I don't know if there's any files that we can drag it in here. Let's see folder, see what we have here. So these are all the things that you can play with. I'm just playing with adding stuff into it. You can go in, getting started, and try getting started. That's what they're doing, getting started, add stuff, and close the editor view. We can close that. Save changes. Do you want to save it? Yeah, we want to save that. So whatever you want to add new pages. You wanted to create a storyboard. So all these good things that we can try to do, you play with different things. Do we want to add subpages? You can do all of that. You wanted to create a revision. Do you want to publish it or just now? So you can kind of play in different things here. What I want to go get into is the database here. So all the things that we're storing, we're putting in here in the back end. It is going into the DevOps. Okay. So that's what it's doing. I'm trying to see what else is doing in here. So okay. Well, I'll let you guys play with the steps and see if you need me, let me know. But you don't have to follow the steps. I want you guys to have the experience of having the Azure DevOps, because Azure DevOps is not easy to install, so you won't have, get to play with it. But here you have option to play with it. And I don't know if with the DevOps you guys are using some of the working all one place. I don't know if you guys doing any of the pipelines, doing agile methodology, all of that. That's what we're doing. That's what it's doing in here. And you can do set up like a project and set up the boards, all pipelines, test plans. You can do all of those in DevOps. So that's what DevOps is. They're giving you that opportunity to do that. So you guys have about 30 minutes, so I'll give you guys to play with it. But also what I want you to get familiar with is going in and doing it in the self-paced lab, because there's a lot of other topics in there. So if you try to go through this once, and you'll get more familiar with it. And now you have your Microsoft Live account, so you can go in, and as you can see, there were 154 topics in Azure that has all up, so you guys can play with it. Okay. I'm going to go back and put stuff in my thing too here. I need to make this bigger. I can't see. Mm-hmm. How are you guys doing? Are you guys able to follow the steps? If I'm not hearing anything, I assume you can. If you get stuck or you have a question, let me know. I'm here.
Yeah, we are stuck on this step 26. You need
26.
to,
Okay, I'm not that far, but what is 26? Are you at step 26 or you're stuck at 26?
yeah, after 26, I'm stuck to move it to 27. It's not moving to 27.
Are you getting an error or?
It's just loading broken wiki page links. Just loading. It's not coming. That move option is not coming for us.
For any of you guys? Ruchi can't get it work either?
For her also, it's not coming.
Do you think is that the system is just slow or something we had wrong? Okay, let me look at the step to see that. I'm trying to. This is all right. I need it a little bit bigger. I can't see. Hold on, make it bigger. Okay. So you say 26. Okay, add subpages. Pretty much that you're adding stuff. That's not a big thing. You guys got that down. Revisions. Okay. Is that, you think we start having problem at the revisions level? Version is okay. She said 25. Okay, getting started. Okay. Make these pages peers. Okay. Reprinted, parented, you'll need to confirm the move. For break links you'll have manually added to other pages. You'll need to decide if you want to check for affiliated links by clicking check affiliated links. Is that what you did? Check the affiliated links? So, yeah, I see that. Yeah, mine didn't come back either. I just did move without fixing.
Even we did the same now.
I'm sorry? Yeah, because I don't know the depth, the parts PU, the parts unlimited. I don't know what type of link they might have it in other part that they didn't, that we're not seeing. So I would just choose that in step 26. Check the affiliated links. If they're not fixing it, they just move without fixing. And make sure that under the page links you don't see no broken links found. Is that what you're seeing, or does that say there's broken links under there?
We moved without.
Yeah, without fixing
Fixing.
what happened.
Yeah, so the page link is gone. So it has moved it from the getting started to home, but but the thing is that error. I mean that message is not there. No broken links found. That message did not come to us.
It didn't come at all. Okay, but come anything at all, or it's nothing under the page link? I mean, page links and work items. Do you see anything there? Does it say page link something, work items 1 or 2 or anything? If we don't, yeah, that a little bit weird. That's weird. You should see at least, page link 0, work item 1 or something like that. Now go look at to make sure did it actually move it? Did you go see it to make sure it's moved?
Yeah, it moved.
It moved. Okay. All right. That is moved. We just got maybe their steps may not be 100% correct either, right? So, but let's not worry about it. Let's see if you can publish it to the wiki. That's what would be interesting to do. When I do it, if I get it, I'll let you guys know. I'm not that far yet. I had something else I had to take care of for a second. So All right, I'm back and working on it. So what step was I? Okay, started. Okay, I already did that. I add that. Okay. Uh, to the 2080 Foundation server. Okay, but edit the page. Okay, I'm about there. So let me see if I try this and it's a problem or not. Okay, I cannot move that up. Yeah, I didn't get any. I didn't get the message either, page link or anything like that. That must be a new version. They moved it. We used to get this. We don't get it. I didn't get it either.
Yeah, May, are you done with the task one?
Yes? Which one?
Should we proceed with task two, publishing code
Yes.
as wiki?
Yes, please. Yeah. So were you able to, other than we didn't see that error, you were able to continue, right?
Yeah, what that there is one more step. The 30th step was also not working.
What do you mean by not working? What happened?
It's showing some error for me and Ruchi
It is
both.
showing errors. Okay. At step 30, you say?
Yeah, step 30. The wiki page you just updated should appear as one of the results.
One of the results. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, the search results. So it's not doing the search then, huh?
Can you try from your end? Working for you is?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm almost there. I'm at step 27. Yeah, I
Okay.
couldn't get. I don't see that. I don't see the page links like you know what we were talking earlier. Well, I didn't see that either. So if we do a search and go back to that. Let me go back to that overview. Let me see if I get the same error with you guys or not. Okay, I wanted to do 27. We are doing the NV and the filter page. Okay, I see that. Search this project. Okay, so you're getting the same. How do you can see my screen here? Hold on, I'm coming back to my screen.
An error encountered, right?
Yeah, I think I'm getting the same error you guys got, right? We
Yeah.
encountered an unexpected error when processing your
Yeah.
request.
What is it?
Yeah, I just think that it's just because it's not a license purchase. Maybe that's why.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I don't think that we have license.
So we can now proceed to task 2, right?
No, you can, yeah, you should be able to proceed. I'll
Oh,
continue this while I'm the same step as you guys know. Go to the repos hub. Add a repos. No, we're not repos hub out of the file. Okay. See if we can do that. New repository. Why did I give the file? Okay, under file. Under file, repos. Okay, new repository name and docs. No. Okay, add a readme to your repository. Okay, create. I'm getting an error. What the heck did I do? I typed it wrong something. Wiki name and documentation. Okay, I went to put that instead of that collection. I don't know why I could. I getting error there. Maybe it's not done yet. Okay, so most of you guys, how far did you get it? You should.
Okay, we're completed with task 2.
Okay, now I think that's all time we're going to have. I want to go back and talk a little about the cache thing, but keep this in mind. This is the one you can have access. You can access the same lab tomorrow. You can access the same lab every 24 hours, once every 24 hours. In the same 24 hours, you can access as many labs as you want. Does that make sense, guys?
Okay, so
So you can go back in and tomorrow, you can go back in and redo the whole thing. But every time, of course, you go back and you're going to have to redo the whole thing, right? But you can see, but I want you to start getting more familiar with this lab, and that's why I let you guys do it on your own for a little bit, because I want to make sure that you guys can look at the instruction and be able to follow it. Okay, so there, as I told you, there are so many labs in that self-paced lab we were showing you earlier. So if there are any topics in there you're interested, you can go in and do that. You can do that as many times as you want. You can repeat the same session as many times as you want, but every time you repeat it, you have to start from the beginning. You have to redo the whole thing. They're not going to store it like in your portal thing. But the good thing here is that here you don't have to install a lot of stuff, that extensions and stuff that you might not have permission on your own portal, but you know these functionalities are out there. Like if you're more developers, you will do more application innovation with Azure, all that kind of stuff. If you're more analysts, you'll do that. And if you're not, you're in between, or you have different roles in there. Anything that, the more knowledge you have is the better. Nothing is going to hurt you by knowing more. So I highly recommend you guys to play it, because this one has already installed environment with all these extra stuff that we can't install on your portal or on my portal either. There's a lot of costs associated with it. So I want you guys to start getting more familiar with the self-paced lab. And one thing good with the self-paced lab that I want you guys to be familiar with, anytime Microsoft add any new functionality to the Azure portal, any functionality and new features comes in, they will be in the self-paced lab before it goes anywhere, before anybody will publish it. So as we're looking at every day, there are adding new self-paced lab into it. So I think that would be a good resources for you guys. All right. And I will see you guys tomorrow. If you have time, you want to stay there and finish it, you can. But if you don't have to finish it today, you can come back. But if you go back, you got to redo the whole thing. But if there's a particular topic that you're interested, it's not going to hurt you to go back and do it 2 or 3 times so you get, very familiar with it. Okay? And if you guys go through, even not just beyond after class, and any topic there you went through the steps and you say, hey, if you get stuck or whatever, just let me know. You have my email, you have my phone number. In this particular one, this particular self-paced lab, I'm going through, this is the step. I got stuck. What's the error? Send me an email. Give me a couple of days. I'll get back to you, after this, that time you have with me. And after all these classes are over and you still go through and study on these things, I'd highly recommend you guys to do that. The more you know, the better you are. It doesn't matter either you're a developer or not. Knowing what developer does is going to help you, as well as if you're a developer, what administrator is going to do is going to help you as well. Because in Azure, there's not a really fine line like we have on premises. Azure is more the roles kind of cross between them. So the more you know, the better. It's not going to hurt you. So, all right. Hopefully this was a little good exposure for you guys. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Got 2-3 minutes if you need me. But like I said, I highly recommend you